Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we are discussing Suicide Squad Isekai, which is a different one for me because I'm not a big anime fan in general. And as some of you may have known, I'm not the biggest on DC coverage. I like DC, I jump into it every now and again, but it's not like the be all and end all for me. So, this was an interesting project to pick up, but it's been a bit slow recently. And I thought, let's try something new, let's try something that pushes me a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And I've got to be honest, I was pretty surprised. So, first off, probably the most important thing is that Isekai, I didn't know what Isekai meant. I thought it was like, it would probably be like some kind of world or something. I mean, actually, funny enough, that kind of did work out that way, but I didn't quite understand the meaning of it. I didn't realize it was like a subgenre of anime in which like the heroes are transported to another world. It makes sense though now that I've like heard that, because I certain things that I've watched previously or certain things that I'm aware of kind of go in that vein. For example, Sword Art Online is sort of that to a degree. Digimon, I believe, used to do something similar. I don't know if Digimon is considered like the most anime of animes, but or even if it is, I don't know, but like that felt like that has done that before. And as well, I was watching a video not long ago from Food for Dogs, which showed, I think, a game that was made in like working with Studio Ghibli, is that right? Nino Kuni, which shows again this idea of going between two worlds. So I didn't know the name of Isekai, but I got the concept. So once I started to actually understand that that was related and that there was this kind of idea of going to another world, I was a little bit more hooked than I was initially. I'll discuss that in a second, but yeah, that was quite an interesting reveal for me. That's an actual, like, it's a subgenre of anime. So that was really cool to figure out as it was going. So me being uninitiated in anime actually worked out for me in this instance, where I got to see this kind of reveal that was quite, wow, what's this? So yeah, that was pretty cool. But as well, this isn't a new sphere necessarily for DC. Whilst again, I've not watched this necessarily. I know that DC has branched into sort of similar trends with, like, I think it's Batman Ninja or something akin to that, which they've done a movie of previously, and they're doing another one of again. So they've kind of moved. They're trying to move into this market a little bit over time, which is interesting because you don't see that a lot with many other franchises these days. I mean, The Witcher sort of has done it recently, a little while back, because they did a a manga, and that was, I actually have it over there, and it was somewhere. If you're watching live, you can see that. Not live, sorry, on, you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm shutting up. And that was really good. So I think this kind of retelling of stories in this different style, Star Wars has done it with Star Wars Visions as well. It's quite fun, and it adds a little bit of levity in a way, because the way in which this animation is done is so different that it allows new ideas to kind of percolate as a response. So I really did. I found that really interesting. But you can definitely see with this show the inspiration of the other Suicide Squad properties. Especially the two popular movies, and then there's other congruence there as well with Harley Quinn, etc. But you can see that has had a big impact on how this show has decided to go through with this on a kind of thematic, stylized level. There are other things that I think are very different with this version that I quite like. Obviously, the first being the plot. The plot is very different from. Well, actually, it's sort of. At the beginning, I thought it was going to be very similar to the plot of the first Suicide Squad movie, because I feel like Enchantress probably has something to do with this on some level, and I'm interested to see if that ends up happening. But yeah, that's where I was going with it. I was like, oh wow, you've got Katana, you've got Harley Quinn, you've got Deadshot, you've got King Shark, and then actually the surprise for me was that they used Clayface in this. Peacemaker made sense because Peacemaker's become quite a big DC name more recently, but Clayface was actually one that I found really interesting, and what I find even more interesting is that he is quite an important character in the show thus far. There's been 3 episodes released as like a starting point. I think there's meant to be 12 in total, and in those first 3 episodes, he's quite integral to the team. And the way they've done it this like in this version is that he's kind of like this suave actor that actually hasn't been sort of like detrimented by his clearness, so to speak. And like, so it's kind of like, it's a really interesting kind of character. He's kind of I don't know if this is the right word. There probably is like an actual word for these types of characters, but he's more the fancy kind of suave member of the group. He's the charismatic one, which is quite funny to play with. And as well, saying that, there is some humor in these episodes that actually caught me off guard, and I was actually laughing. Like, not, you know, we've kind of become kind of the only way I can describe it is there's a brain rot around superhero humor. And don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily believe that it's like as bad as people make it out to be, but I think sometimes the humor is very on the nose. It's very like dad jokes and stuff like that. This kind of didn't necessarily do that, but it's funny because most of the jokes they actually make are in reference to other Warner Brothers properties, which I did find quite funny. There's a joke in, I think, episode 3 about like, oh, this is exactly like Tom and Jerry or something. And I don't remember how it goes, but basically just the punchline is Tom's a dick. And I found that hilarious. It was really funny. I did like a barking laugh, almost like a what? That was really bad. That was not how I laugh. But like, it was like a whoa. I can't emulate it. No, I'm trying. It's not coming there. But basically, I was like, you know, I did find it very funny. So there's a little bit of humor in there. I think the fighting sequences as well. And again, this is something that I don't usually typically care for in shows. But when you're going with this kind of bombastic level, kind of show, you can kind of amp it up in a way that's visually appealing and quite fun. And like, you know, you've got this magical element as well in this, as opposed to just typically like your normal fight scenes. So it actually, in that way as well, I think it really turned out quite well. And I was looking forward to the fight scenes, especially because the music that they're using in this is also really amped up. So when you're getting into those fight scenes, it's like, yeah, you're like amped up alongside these people. You're really excited for the fight that's kind of coming. Yeah, so I think this show has kind of hit quite a good thematic point, which is funny because in the first half of the first episode, I really didn't believe that to be the case. The show opens with Harley and Joker, and I've got to be honest, it felt overacted, it felt stilted. There was kind of like the scenes went back and forth with what was happening with Waller to set up the plot, like Amanda Waller, and yeah, I wasn't enjoying it. And then halfway through the first episode, there was a shift. And like, you started to meet the other characters, and you started to kind of get an idea of what was going on, and they had like entered this other world, and suddenly it was like, oh, this is intriguing. And I like the idea that they just kind of took the Suicide Squad, picked a bombastic concept, and threw everything on its head. And I do kind of appreciate it, you know. I think sometimes that's exactly what you need to shake things up with. You need to do something different. It reminds me very much of the episode of Star Wars Visions in which you see Luke and Leia as evil twins ruling the Empire. And like, they end up fighting, I believe. And so it's not implied to be Luke and it's implied to be Luke and Leia. It's never said, but you know, it's taken from them, and just great. And like, even the book that spawned out of Star Wars Visions, Ronin, Star Wars Running, was a great book. Like, probably one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars literature, and it's not even canon. Like, it's not even canon to all canon. It's just not at all canon. But like, the characters in there were so different and so intriguing, and I think that's the thing, that if you allow artists to breathe and try new things, sometimes you come out with really, really cool new concepts. And you know, I think that's something that Hollywood and kind of the TV movie franchises in general have kind of lost more recently, is this frequent kind of desire to recapture something old rather than trying something new. And so it's nice when you see a different, like a little bit of a shift in that in the market. So this was really good for that too. You know, I don't know where the show's necessarily going. There's a lot of secrets and mysteries in the episodes already, which is going to be interesting to see revealed. But you know, there's other characters seemingly showing up as rivals and villains, etc. There's the Ratcatcher shows up in one of the episodes, for example. There's very clearly going to be more of Joker, I'd say. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where the show goes. You know, we've got another 9 episodes to look forward to, so maybe we'll come back to it once it is finished. But yeah, so something very different this week, and you know, I haven't got like loads and loads to say on it because it's funny. I actually didn't know that this was even coming out this week until I saw IGN. Oh, that's what I want to talk about. Actually, I do have something else I want to talk about. So IGN dropped the outro for the show, and that was actually what got me interested in watching it. Now it's funny because on that tweet, people were saying, "Oh my gosh, we don't want to see this," and it's basically because the ending of the show has this kind of dance number, which I think a lot of these types of shows have this kind of non-canon, kind of funny, let's not take ourselves seriously kind of outro, right? Like even I know that, and I'm not a big, you know, anime slash animation person in general. Okay, so like, you know. But there's this dance number, this kind of like, and there's like this upbeat music. I believe it's called Go Getters, I think the end song's called. And it's just really like do you know what it actually reminded me of a lot of, which is another anime I've watched, but you know, I don't know, does it count? I don't know, but the cyberpunk one, it really reminded me of that. Actually, a lot of this show reminded me of that, and I really enjoyed Cyberpunk Edge Runners. So this feels a little bit more in that vein. And yeah, I think sometimes you should have fun with these characters and try something new with these characters, because what does it hurt? Because you know, this isn't the major universe. I forget what universe is the main universe of. Is it something 52 or something like that? It isn't that universe. So like, don't worry about it. Have some fun. Mess around with, you know, Harley and Deadshot, and also like there's some title cards in one of the episodes as well when the characters were kind of being introduced. And I think it's a really cool way of like, as well, introducing those characters to a new audience and a new medium for those characters to the current audience in a way, right? So like for me, I know these characters, but I'm getting a new medium for them. And then if someone sees this, you know, perhaps in Japan or whatever, they see this anime and they pick it up and they get introduced to the characters. So it's a nice like it's almost like a cultural exchange in a way. I know that sounds very stupid, but it's true. And I think it's fun sometimes to have that. I think, you know, there's so many different interesting ways of storytelling in the East, and you know, we have our own, and I think sometimes it's nice to see them cross paths. So yeah, I actually do want to see where this show goes. I didn't think I was going to say that. Like in the first episode, I was so like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to like, I'm gonna watch these 3 episodes and I'm gonna be such a downer on them in the podcast episode. Like I found something to talk about, but I'm gonna like just shit on it for like 15 minutes or whatever. So I'm really glad that I don't have to. But yeah, so you know, definitely some stilted dialogue in places, definitely some weird choices start at the beginning of the story, but I think it's really picking up, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. I know I've said that a lot, but I am. It was very different. Again, I know I've said that a lot, but it's true. Guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, this has been a little shorter of an episode this week, just because sometimes you finish what you're talking about, and that's what it is. So I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope you have a great next week as well. I am unsure if we'll be around next week. We'll be seeing how that goes. But keep an eye out. As always, you guys will be alerted as we go. In the meantime, guys, thank you for listening / watching, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.